We are going to move on to our next panel discussion, and it is Unicorns and Angels, what flies for Florida investors. You're about to hear from investors about what made them make certain decisions, make certain investments, what was it about a certain pitch that resonated with them. I'd like to introduce our panelists in no certain order. Ashok Kartham, our angel investor and CEO of m-ize. Welcome to the stage. Thank you. Matt Rice, partner with Ballast Point Ventures. And your moderator, TiECon's Suresh Madan, CEO of MyHealthCentre. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I promise to keep it brief and crisp so that we work on this panel. I'm here also representing TiE Global. I'm privileged to be serving on their Global Board of Trustee. And I wanted to give you, before we go into our specific panel, go into a little bit plug on what TiE Global has been up to and what we have been doing recent years. As you probably saw, we've updated our website, which focuses on the 5 pillars which were discussed earlier. But in addition to that, even though we have a huge entrepreneurial and IT background, we've now started an app. This app was released last week, actually, and this app allows each of us to connect. In fact, it was a beta version of the same app which helped me connect with Kunal, and which ultimately led me to an invitation to come here and speak to you. So the app actually profiles all our charter members throughout the globe, along with their profile and their specialization, which we can reach out and really leverage the network. In addition to the app, the next version of the app is coming with a trip it, where any charter member who travels anywhere, as long as he's accepted to subscribe to that portion of the app, it will get notified to every host charter member in that particular place who's ever subscribing to it, and they can connect and meet if they wish to on their own. TiE Global has been arranging a retreat, and we will love to have TiE Florida to participate more and more in these retreats. We had about 300 charter members and their spouses coming into Dublin last summer. Very well attended retreat. Now we are coming up with the next retreat in winter in Jaipur in December, and we'd love to have participation from TiE Florida in these retreats. We have a TED Talk type of program called TiE Talks, which is on the web. In fact, many of the, if we can arrange to get this video from TiECon Florida, we can definitely get it into snippets of 3 to 5 minutes of the relevant topics and relevant conversations to be posted as TiE Talks, which has got a huge viewership currently as participating. TiE Silicon Valley has agreed to sponsor an international business plan competition. I saw some of the some of the opportunities which were presented earlier today, good quality, and they may have an opportunity to participate and seek mentoring at Silicon Valley as part of TiECon at Silicon Valley in May, an opportunity to participate in an international level competition coming from all the chapters across the globe. So there are a number of things happening. As you probably know, TiE is getting more and more traction. We now have the seat on the table. Only last week, Prime Minister Modi came from India, and TiE Silicon Valley and TiE Global was very actively involved in all the celebrations connected with that. About 2 months ago, Chairman of TiE Global, Al Kapoor, was on a roundtable in the White House. So we are getting traction as a largest entrepreneurial organization in the globe, and we're very happy with that. And it's all possible because of the support from chapters like you. A month ago, we inaugurated our 61st chapter, which was in TiE Lucknow. A new chapter has been started, and we're growing in terms of number of chapters, etc. So I'll come right to the topic on angel investment and venture investment, and I'm privileged to be moderating this panel with 2 very fine gentlemen. Ashok is the TiE Tampa president, so he doesn't need any introduction, but I know he has been a serial investor, but he is also an angel investor besides being serial entrepreneur. So we'll start with Ashok.
his perspective on angel, and then we'll come to that.
Sure. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. As Suresh mentioned, I had a software company near Chicago. After selling it, I had an opportunity to move to Tampa about 3 years ago and founded m-ize, where we focus on, again, helping companies to mobilize and monetize customer interactions. And also, when I moved here, part of what we wanted to see was how can we be part of an ecosystem? Again, we were very fortunate as founding chairman like Dr. Kiran Patel, as well as the President Kunal Jain, founding TiE, and I want to be active part of it, have been for the last 3 years. And again, thanks very much for the privilege of being president for the last 2 years. And then Ramesh, have a great model to build. But as part of the ecosystem, we do realize the angel capital or seed capital is very important. And so I was active member of the New Angel Forum, have invested in few companies, which we can share about, as well as also invested in Florida funders, which we think, again, there are a number of opportunities to build different funding channels, different platforms. How do you syndicate this together so the startups and the good ideas can find the capital? Again, again, my mission, I say, is, first of all, previous company I built in a city called Moline, Illinois, which probably a lot of you haven't heard of it. Main thing was our main customer, John Deere, was there, right? Compared to that, Tampa has a much better ecosystem. So one of our missions is, we think we can build a great company in Tampa. Hopefully m-ize can be one of the examples of that. And also think we have a great ecosystem. All the things that are happening are very encouraging within Tampa. And also as far as the capital, I think somebody gave me a statistic that Florida has probably the most high net worth individuals. That means there is no lack of capital, but there is a lack of connections between startups and the capital. And hopefully part of this ecosystem, what we are trying to build is how do we connect all these pieces together? Again, we have very good examples. I know Dr. Kiran Patel or Dr. Dinesh Patel have proven. Kiran Patel built a huge company in Tampa, right? Made a lot of money. Not only that, he's contributing to the ecosystem. He's giving back, either it's the Moffitt Cancer Center, Kiran C. Patel, like a Global Sustainability Center, as well as Patel Conservatory, and he was willing to spend a lot of time with TiE to help inspire and help other startups to do it. So that's, again, a good example for us to say you can start companies here. We are all part of the ecosystem, right? And we can all, I think we can find the right capital for the right ideas to grow. So with that, again, I'm privileged to be on stage with Matt.
Yeah, so thank you, Ashok. Matt is a partner with Ballast Point Ventures, a $360 million venture fund, and focused on Florida. They made a lot of investments in this geography. Matt is currently sitting on the board of 4 of his investee companies. 2 of them happen to be in healthcare. The other 2 are in the IT sphere. And Matt has participated in seed, in Series A, Series B, and have co-invested with a number of other VCs in this area as well. So I'll ask Matt to give us a perspective.
Thank you. We teed up a few slides just to give you some context on the venture capital industry across country and then really here in Florida. But as you can see here, the first slide, I don't know if that's hard to read, but it just depicts median valuations for early stage companies. So this is the 3 lines of going from bottom to top, or seed, Series A, and Series B. And it's really alarming. Valuations are high right now, but if you look over the last 4 years, they've gone up effectively 100%, after the financial crisis. Great for entrepreneurs, not so good for investors. And this slide shows the same trend, but it's taking place in the late stage market too. So this is Series C and D financings, really seeing the same things. Valuations have almost doubled in the last 4 years. And on to the next slide. Since this, I guess the title of this panel was about unicorns, I figured it was appropriate to throw a slide in about unicorns. And I think most of the people in the audience are probably familiar with that term, but it's effectively a private company that's raised venture financing at $1 billion valuation. So I always thought unicorns were rare, and that was the reason for the name. But today, depending on the source, there are about 80 unicorns that are out in business today, and a number of those are still private. But you can see here on the chart, there's been a lot of valuations at a lot of capital raises at billion-dollar valuations, particularly over the last 2 years. And one thing that's mentioned on a bullet point, when you think there's 80-some unicorns out there, there's really only been 2 in Florida, right? Magic Leap in South Florida, and then technically Fanatics, which is really a later stage e-commerce company. And so the reason we put that slide in was just to kind of set the context for when we talk about investment in Florida. There really aren't, it's not a unicorn-rich environment, right? Most of that's contained to the West Coast and New York and Boston markets. And then on the last slide, this just shows venture financing by state. So I think it's not a mystery to anyone here that Florida still really lags other states when it comes to venture financing here in the state. We're the 4th most populous state, almost 20 million people, but we're only, depending on the source, kind of 1.5% to 2% of the venture capital that's invested in the country is here in Florida. So this doesn't capture all of the angel investing activity, which there's a lot of it, but it just shows you that Florida is very underrepresented in terms of capital when you look at where venture is being invested across the country. And that's really the opportunity that we see at Ballast Point. We're based here in Tampa. We focus on companies that are based in the Southeast and Texas, and generally these markets are ones that don't have as much venture capital domiciled here, but when you look at population growth, number of Fortune 500 companies, and general entrepreneurial activity, it's very underrepresented by the capital that's here. So we look at that as an opportunity at Ballast Point, and that's why we have the focus that we do here on the region. And we also go across sectors. We do healthcare, technology, communications, and business services. And in terms of our Florida activity, we've made 15 investments here across our 3 funds, and that's out of 32 total investments, so we're very committed to the state.
Great, thank you. I would like to start a few questions, and then maybe if we have time, we'll go to some of the audience questions. So Ashok, as you have a considerable experience, I'd like to refer to a recent article in Popular Science, which said in year 2020, we will see self-driving cars, we'll see cost-competitive biofuels, we'll see paper-thin display screens, we'll probably see synthetic brain. What opportunities you see for entrepreneurs which they can come up and angels will be interested in investing?
Sure. There are a lot of opportunities. I know, again, the angel side, depending on what your focus and area of expertise, you may look at different areas, especially having the technology background. We see a lot of opportunities in the technology area. I know we are still actually riding the whole wave of the mobile technologies and how it's changing the world. And now, I think all of you heard of IoT as a connected products. Again, it's going to connect billions of products, and then there are even estimates about that could be $1 trillion plus industry. So there are a lot of connected products or wearables that are emerging. Similarly, we think there I look at it, there are 3 dimensions of it. I think somebody talked about in the morning too. All the areas that make our life simpler. Right? So when there is a complexity, which we think there is still a lot of complexity in the world, if we can make it simpler, there are opportunities. And also connected. Every technology we have been talking about makes more connections possible. Obviously, there is social networks, the internet, the mobile, IoT, and things like that. So again, wherever you see the silos or disconnections, there are opportunities to connect, and then also smarter. So a lot of the things that we are doing as humans are about making it smarter. So wherever you see certain things, oh, this is a dumb way of doing it, there are opportunities to make them smarter. So if a combination of it is what I think technology and enabling all the areas, right? So you can make, how do you digitize physical things, right? How do you connect, and then also make it smarter, either it's big data and other things, they all fall under that. So as an angel, again, we are looking at opportunities to say, how are you making it simpler, making it more connected and smarter?
I'd like to talk next about the investing opportunities with regard to demographic tsunami we are facing. The baby boomers are now turning 70, 1946 born. About large number of baby boomers, 80 million of baby boomers in US are present. A large number of them have wealth and they are entrepreneurs. About 470,000 baby boomers are looking for an exit. and they are entrepreneurs. And we in Florida have a higher percentage or higher concentration of baby boomers here. So in that context, where do you see, Matt, where do you see investing opportunities to fund companies which these guys own to take it to the next stage?
Yeah, I think here in Florida, there's a lot of opportunity, and one thing that I think isn't always apparent is that there's a lot of companies that have a great founding entrepreneur, really of any age, but one thing that sometimes we lack here in the state is the high-quality managers and executives that it takes to really scale a company from there. And so that's, at Ballast Point, that's what we're focused on, is later stage companies that have already proven out a business model and have a product or service that is in demand in the market, and you really need to be able to scale that, and that's building teams, and it's senior management all the way down through kind of sales forces, et cetera. So I think we've seen a lot of interesting opportunities where we can actually help recruit experienced entrepreneurs that maybe move down to Florida to retire and then figure out they don't want to play golf every day and want to get back in the game. And there are a lot of interesting companies that probably need some of those executives to help take it to the next level. So as opposed to having someone who started something who may be towards the end of his or her career, it's really a lot of those people who can come in and bring a lot of experience and advice to some of these earlier stage companies to take them to the next level. So that, for me, I think is where we see a lot of opportunity now, particularly here in Florida.
Great, thank you. Ashok, to make a successful company, especially the startup company, you need to identify right market opportunity. You need to have the correct technology and appropriate product. And also, you need to have the passionate team with right experiences. So as an angel investor, when you are looking to invest, how do you prioritize this? Which is more important versus the other?
Sure. To answer that, since I'm a computer science engineer by background, let me share a little bit. In 101, what we shared is there is always a system. System has inputs, and it converts into outputs. Right? If we take it that way, for a startup system, there are a lot of inputs, the idea, the team, the resources, the capital that go in, and the outputs could be the customer traction, customer validation, or you have products. Obviously, there is a monetization of that. Depending on the stage of the investment, you may be looking at one of these. Let's say if we look at and also being from India, there was a saying actually, if you just rely on the inputs, like a cow, which both are considered sacred in India, a cow may eat grass and produce milk. Okay? And a snake drinks that milk, produces a poison in a way. So a lot of times, these all need to work together. What I mean by that is, you may have a very good team, lot of resources, but you need to be able to operate and execute and be able to operate within the context of it to produce the right output. So as an angels, a lot of times, or when you have a startup, a lot of times you only have input. I have an idea, I'm the person to do it. And you may say I can produce first output could be a PowerPoint, or what they say is a plan on a napkin to do it. A lot of times it's difficult to sell those, right? So you may try to focus on, I have the credibility and those kind of things, but I think the angel investors may come a little bit later. Personally, I want to look at, first thing I look for is some kind of a customer validation. It need not be monetized, but the idea can be converted into something that's usable, and that you have either the team or the execution to make it happen in a way, right? Then, I think the VC may come later to say you have a model that can be scaled and can be grown together to do it. So a lot of times what we see with the ideas too is you may be going too early to the angel investors. If you only have to sell on the inputs without any of the outputs, in a way, a lot of times you are the only one that believe in it. Even if you take the big ventures, let's take I know the biggest, richest people that we all know of the entrepreneur stories. Let's say Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, they dropped out of college. Let's say they are the input. It would have been difficult, even though some of the people claimed they were geniuses to invest in them, at that time to say they have the team to invest in it, right? Or even the idea that a social network that connects the college students could become a $100 billion enterprise few years down the road. So a lot of times, but they did prove the traction, that the idea could be proven before like a Peter Thiel or somebody invested in those ideas. So again, we say is as an angels, look for some kind of a customer validation and make sure that you have all these three pieces together to tell your story in a way.
Great, thank you. You know, Reid Hoffman recently wrote a book called The Startup of You. And he suggests a few nuggets. Invest in yourself to build skills. Know what you don't know. Add value in a way no one else does. And strengthen the muscles of resilience. My question to Matt is, what would make a compelling case for your fund for the investor to invest?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and just to set the stage, we hear a lot that there's not any venture capital in Florida, and there's not that much capital here, whether it's angel, early stages, et cetera. And I think the fact that it's harder to raise funds here can actually be a benefit to entrepreneurs because it makes you bootstrap and get that first dollar revenue from a customer and seek that validation earlier, as opposed to markets where capital is cheap, free-flowing, and you can put a lot of money into an idea before figuring out whether or not it's viable or going to work. So one of my favorite business school professors said, if you can't hide it, feature it, right? And so I think entrepreneurs here in the state really need to embrace that bootstrapping mentality. And then when you do get to the point where you're raising capital, you're not giving up as much of the company, right? Because you've already created that value through sweat equity. And as later stage investors, that's what we look for. We'd rather see the business that got to a few million of revenue without taking outside capital or minimal outside capital, because that shows that that entrepreneur treats capital dear. And so, what do I want to see when I'm about to invest my money and my limited partner's money in a business? I want to see an entrepreneur who's proven that they do treat capital dear, and they can create real value with it even when it's limited, right? So that's one thing that we always look for. I think we hesitate to get comfortable with companies that have blown through a lot of capital to try to figure out the model, and regardless of what valuation it was raised at before, et cetera, because sometimes those entrepreneurs don't have as much appreciation for the capital. And so I think that's one thing we do have here in Florida that can be kind of viewed as an advantage.
Great. We have 1 minute for one last question from the audience. Anybody?
Hi, I was at an event in Miami earlier this month where it was sponsored by Knight Foundation and 500 startups, and they were essentially teaching real estate investors how to invest in higher risk startups. Is that going to become a thing? Are we going to have more parties where we teach people how to invest in startups? And if not, why not?
I'll let you answer, but I don't think there's a class you can take that teaches you how to invest in very early stage high risk startups.
So actually, I think talking about startup investments, one of the things I believe in is, like in any investment, there is a portfolio theory, right? That's the basic to it. One of the things I want everybody to consider is startups need to be part of your portfolio. And I was saying is at least take 1%, maybe even 1% of your net worth, try to invest in startups. And the startups actually, again, stretch your dollar a lot further than the other companies. We do understand there is a risk, but there is also an opportunity that these can become bigger, and that's a right value to do it. And as far as going back to, is there a way to, can you teach the investment? And again, everyone is different. Part of, I think, what we need to learn too is, a lot of angel investors especially look at their own expertise and then say, is this something I understand well? And is this something I can add value to? Because if you are a public investor, you are not interested. You are looking at the financial statements and other factors and invest in it. As an angels or VCs, you are actively involved. So a lot of times, again, more than teaching is, they kind of trying to understand and then say, is this something that fits to my expertise? Is this something I can add value to? And those things, I think, have to be individually figured out.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking the